I became the interim CMO at Kaiser Permanente on the second day of shelter in place. And so I realized a couple things. I was in a very large role. We were not going back in person. We were not networking in person. And I was pretty active outside. So it really, I felt like I needed to pay attention to my LinkedIn profile and sort of get my my act together in that space. My executive coach introduced me to Anouk, and my executive coach and I were talking about, okay, what's your next thing? How are you? So you got the role. I've been working really hard for it. 5 years, what do you want to be? And it literally was, I'm like in the same week saying, I just got here. And she's like, no, you got to think about the next thing. And she introduced me to Anouk, and we worked through the process. So I think it was a job change, and then just sort of the environment in which our context was sort of a little bit of a kick in the pants. I have spent my whole career with my eye on becoming a CMO. And then we met and you said, that's great. You got the title. Good for you. You have this incredible role, this great scope, but who are you? I mean, before we started filling in that grid together, I had to take a pause and really kind of process the fact that I had to separate title and work from who I showed up as a person. One of the things you asked me is, what do you stand for? And I talked about being a change agent. And you said, well, that's fine, but everyone says that. Talk to me about what's going to differentiate you in that space. So we came up with agent of positive change. And then kind of built from there. So I've been working really hard with your support, the team support, and working on my own to really build that out, so that all the dimensions of my digital footprint reinforce being an agent of positive change. And I'll say just sort of three more things, and then I'll hand it back over to you. There's kind of three dimensions to that. One is in my role being an agent of positive change, the fact that I support sustainable growth, which I focus on the core and will look at new things, but not for the bad of the business, if you will. Growing teams and sustaining teams in the context of positive change, and then as a leader, really being willing to put myself out there to share my experiences to help others learn and grow through my achievements and, more importantly, my mistakes. Now that we have gotten the basics in on LinkedIn, and we've gotten into a regular cadence of publishing together. So it's my content, it's me. But then looking at how do I extend that to the company I work for, outside content and me commenting on it. So really trying to figure out how do I dimensionalize what being an agent of positive change might look like. So the getting the basics right, which what you walking through these slides is really great. There's a lot of work that goes into that, but once you do that and it's behind you and you get into the rhythm of publishing and the rhythm of looking outside in and the rhythm of having a voice, it actually becomes part of your sort of the work I do every week. And I make time for it. We've been working a lot on where I have been interviewed or been on a panel or been on a podcast, and we take that video and we create articles that I can publish. We also, and it falls into the areas that are important to me as far as what differentiates me. So creator of sustainable growth, as Anouk said, I could say that I'm a creator of sustainable growth, but I have to back that up. So we're working on content that backs that up. An empowering leader. It's really important to me that I demonstrate leadership through inclusivity and authenticity. And one of the best things Anouk ever said to me was, you can say you're authentic, just like people can say they're funny, but you actually have to demonstrate that you're funny. You have to demonstrate you're authentic. So working on being an empowering leader through the conversations that I've had, the things I write about, or the articles that I comment about. I think what's really interesting too, and you mentioned this on Troy, is if I see what Troy posts and I think it's interesting, and Troy actually makes my life a little bit easier because he's summarizing what I think are important points, I'm going to follow Troy. And I'm going to look at what Troy posts, and he's going to help me get smarter and help me increase my depth in content by following him. And that's been a priority of mine too, is how can I be someone that people can learn from and follow and increase my sphere of influence. So there's a few different strategies and a few different layers to this, but at the minimum, it is ensuring that I'm honoring the two areas of differentiation around sustainable growth and empowering leadership areas. But one of the things I haven't done yet that you probably will touch on is I haven't taken this content to proactively find leaders, organizations, or people that I may want to follow or I may want to introduce myself to, and use the content as a way to make that connection. That was something that you have described to me. And I will just be honest, I haven't done that yet, but I think that's a real opportunity for me to sort of grow my influence and meet other people who may not have crossed my path. Tools in our toolbox, right? These are assets of all the things we bring to the conversation, and how do we leverage them and amplify them to meet the goals that we have for ourselves. What I found the hardest about getting started was to find that level of specificity. What is it you're trying to achieve? What is your and then work on the brand, and then who needs to hear from you? And that's the hardest part, is to really winnow it down to the critical thing that you're trying to do, and then shape everything around it. And then over time you can build upon it. But that was one of the more challenging parts. And then from there, it's easier.